Hello, Slicey Dicers. This is Brian with another knife review for you. Today we have the Kizer Vanguard Gemini, the new version in the micarta handles. If you don't know, Vanguard in Kizer means the less expensive version. If it doesn't say Vanguard, they're usually titanium S35, stuff like that. These lower end versions are in cheaper materials, but I'm going to argue this is probably the best version of the Gemini, which has been out for quite some time. But of all the Geminis I've handled and reviewed, this is probably my favorite. $75, Bowler N690 steel, as I said, brown micarta. For $95, you can get the Vanguard now in copper handles if you want to go that way. They're a lot heavier. And as we'll get to in a moment, I think are going to reintroduce some issues that I had with the more expensive Gemini. You can still get the older, blockier G10. Same handle shape, but it's not rounded off like this is. Really, really grippy. In my opinion, here's the problems I had with the Gemini. I'm going to pick this thing up, and sorry about the little piece of paper there. This does not want to lay flat when you set it down, so try to make it look better for the pictures. The first Gemini I had, I think, was the G10 version. I liked it quite a bit, and then I got enough that I got the titanium version, and I did really, really like the titanium version. I'm going to link to you from a video from 2017. Have fun watching that. I was not as good at this back then, but I'm not that great at it now, but I really sucked back then. And I found it was great. I loved it. Actually, it's like basically an ode to the knife. It's not even like really a full review because it had been reviewed to death by then. The Vanguard was the newer one. But I mentioned that video, it's a little slippery. That turned out that was a big problem. It was a lot slippery. It's one of the few knives I actually dropped while using it. It was just too freaking slippery. And the G10 version, I feel, was too grippy. This is the Goldilocks zone of that, I do believe. And Bowler N690 and micarta liner lock on bearings, still really good materials. Nothing that's really going to, in daily EDC, are you going to notice the difference between N690 and S35VN? Probably not. The S35VN is a little bit better, but you're probably not going to actually notice the difference. And just the grippiness on this is just right. As you can see, it's not like polished micarta. It still has some grip to it. But there are still a lot of versions available. One that I was really tempted by is you can get the fancier one with the S35VN and a titanium frame lock with carbon on one side. That's probably also really excellent, but I never actually pulled the trigger on one of those. Maybe I will now that I'm reminded as to how much I love the Gemini. But it's a great design, designed by Ray Laconico, who I always love all of his stuff. It's not always the most exciting stuff to look at, but it always works really, really well. But I think of all of his designs, the Gemini is one that's held up extremely well. I know that there's also the Jasmine. I can't remember who makes that. That is a very, very similar design from him. It's a pretty iconic Ray Laconico design, and as I said, holds up extremely well. Let's do some specs and size comparisons before we go too much farther, and then we will get down into the nitty-gritty of this. So spec size, we have an overall length of 7¼ inches, blade length of just over 3 inches, blade thickness of 0.11 inches, handle thickness of 0.43 inches, and a weight, according to my scales, of 2.8 ounces. So it's a pretty lightweight knife, especially in this micarta. Do some size comparisons here. We'll start out with our Benchmades. We have your full-size Griptilian, the full-size Bug Out. You can see it's just a little bit shorter than a Bug Out, a little bit taller, but a little bit shorter. And we're going to bring out one more, also in the same kind of size. This is the Benchmade Mini Freak. And you see very, very similar in size to the Mini Freak, just a hair bigger. Now let's do some Spydercos here. We'll bring out our usuals first, the Paramilitary 2. And the Para 3. Very similar in size to a Para 3 in length. It's obviously a little slimmer knife. And then lastly, we're going to pull out one more Spyderco here. Lastly, for the Spydercos, I still got one or two more I want to show you, but the Sage 5. Again, the perspective's off a little bit, but look at the lines. It's almost exactly the same size as the Sage 5, maybe just a hair longer than a Sage 5. And if you get the Stage 5 lightweight, it's the same size, basically. Now, a couple of knives also in this same sort of genre, I guess, some other kind of budgety overseas made stuff. We have the Ferrum Forge Stinger. These are $75, $90. Yeah, this may be a battle to the death, because they are very, very similar in size, very similar in kind of use and intention. Is that a phrase? And the Civivi Dogma, a little bit less expensive and a little bit larger. So, talk about this knife. Now, one of the things I loved the most about this when I first got it was back in 2017, is it was extremely slicey for that time. Pretty thin blade stock, as I said, 0.11 inches, but as you can see, it tapers really quickly. So the places that you're actually cutting, it's more like, 0.09. About 22 thousandths behind the edge. Still considered very slicey. Now, in modern times, luckily, a lot of companies are aiming more for slicier blades, which is great. You can find a lot of Civivis, like the Dogma, I think is 14 thousandths behind the edge or something like that. A lot of knives are a lot thinner behind the edge now than they used to be, which is, I think, a great thing. So this isn't quite up to the times with those, but it's still extremely slicey. Excuse me. Blah. It's still great. N690, perfectly fine steel. I have zero issues with the N690. Especially Kizer's seems to hold up really, really well. No sharpening choil. Again, kind of a sign of the times from back when this thing was originally designed. I think if it was put out today, it probably would have one, although Kizer's not awesome about providing those, but they do quite a bit. But it's still a great blade, just a simple drop point. Pretty good tip on it, which I do like a lot. For the relatively thin blade stock, I do have to say, it has a pretty darn good tip on it. This is a knife you can do a lot of stuff with and not sweat anything at all. Ergonomically, still a Gemini. Most Laconicos are great ergonomically, and this is no exception. And like I said, perfect amount of grippiness. It's not too rough, slides it out of the pocket super easy, as you will see shortly, and just extremely comfortable in the hand. If I have any flaws with it, you can kind of feel the lock bar, but not enough for me to really be that upset about. And you can kind of feel the edge of the scales a little bit. They could have knocked those down just a tiny bit, but no issues with the pocket clip. There's no jimping. I wouldn't hate to see some jimping on it, but this isn't really that kind of knife. But I wouldn't hate seeing some jimping. It would probably go right over Ray's name, unfortunately, but he can move it up. But it is a very, very comfortable knife to use. Definitely something you use all day long, and your hand isn't going to get tired or get blisters or anything like that. Now for the carry, bring out EO Levi's. It carries pretty good. Deep carry clip, no, but neither did the expensive one with the titanium clip or the previous Gemini. It carries pretty darn deep though, and it's brown micarta. It's not something that's going to stick out a whole lot. The copper one might stick out a bit more, but yeah, it's lanyard hole placement gets in the way of the clip a little bit, but it's not too egregious as far as your hand going past it. There is a flipper tab sticking out, but it's not a pocket pecker. There's no jimping on it or anything. It's not going to scratch your little pinky when it goes by or nothing like that. And it's pretty slim. And again, pretty lightweight, 2.8 ounces. Another advantage I think this has over the titanium version. The titanium version is not a tank by any stretch of the imagination, but this is a little bit lighter. As far as the action goes, it is excellent. I've done absolutely nothing to this. I've taken it out of the box and flipped it a few times and, bang it on the table there. It is fairly drop shutty, a little bit of wrist, but I haven't done anything. I think if I really tuned it up, I could probably get it to be almost totally drop shut. This is a pretty thin, lightweight blade, so gravity. It's not going to be a total just fall shut machine, like a big old Hinderer is or something like that, but not bad at all. I have to say, I do enjoy the action on it. D10 is absolutely perfect. You can light switch it. You can push button it however you want. It flips open extremely well. Yeah. I just keep thinking, God, I'd love this if it had a little thumb tab on it or something like that. That would be really, really cool. But my overall conclusion is, this is my favorite version of an excellent knife. I highly recommend 2 thumbs up. definitely do recommend. I'm not sure if it's going to be on my knife of the year list because it really is just a steel and scale material change. I'm not sure if I can qualify that as new for 2020, but I might. It's put your opinions down below. Do you think this is a new model for 2020, or is it just a different version of what they already made? I try and make sure that my knives are in my top 10 list at the end of the year are new for this year. But if I do decide it is new for this year, it's going to be a contender. It's a great freaking knife for $75. Yeah, the micarta is really nice. This isn't just nice micarta for $75. It's just nice micarta. Quality wise, the only issues I have are, the screws that Kizer uses aren't amazing. They're not the worst in the world, but they're not exactly great either. So I'm going to keep this one around, and I'm going to actually carry it. Since I've had it for a few days now, and it has been in my pocket a fair bit. I do really like, I got some really expensive knives the day that I got this, and this is what I wound up putting in my pocket. It's just a pleasure to use, and I love the Gemini design. And yeah, this may be the cheapest one, but I think it's the best one. Or one of the cheapest ones, but I think it's the best one. Go check this out. Hope you guys have enjoyed this. I've been Brian. Have a good one.